Thanks again for coming. I don't know how many of you were here last week. Thanks for coming out again and doing all of this. And I apologize for the last meeting and how high tensions there were, but of course that's just how it's going to have to go, dealing with these kind of situations. But ideally this meeting will be a little bit more positive, a little bit more moving forward. We're going to get into more of the harder facts and start to really communicate better and move on towards that path forward. Again, my name is Adam Perkins. I work for Local Innovations, a community planning firm that specializes in small communities and HOAs. I've been doing this for about 6 years now with HOAs and other small communities. And my background is in urban planning, actually, where basically we take that city planning process and help HOAs through that same process again. How do you make these very, very tough decisions when you're making decisions for other people? Will you bring those other people into the room? You have a good conversation. You bring people up to date. That way you can make that decision together. So hopefully today, through this process, we can keep moving forward that path. So this is a little bit of overview of that process. We're here in the community meeting 2 area where we're still in the collaboration process and moving towards that evaluation process. So we've been captivating, we're going to collaborate, evaluate, move into that decision-making process. Tonight, we're going to briefly recap what we went over last week for the benefit of people who weren't here or just to go over it again. We're going to again go over the HOA budget, this time spend a little more time on it, since we have more time for that tonight. Go over the cost estimates once more. Then we're going to also answer some of the questions that were brought up last week and make sure that we're getting all of those clear answers to you. It's only been a week, but we are trying to move as fast as we can and make sure you know that we are listening to you and making sure that you get all of the facts that you need. We're going to continue the work on the community goals as well as defining some of those options. And we're going to go do a little short exercise with that to help improve that and see how you guys are feeling about that process, and making sure that we have valuable goals that can meet, and the options can meet those goals. We're going to talk about what we'll do next, and then we'll have again an open forum similar to last week, where we'll have a question and answer period to make sure that we're answering all of your questions and you can follow along with this process. I want to make a quick reminder of what an HOA is. It's a nonprofit corporation made up of you guys, the members. It's not the management company. They're hired to help through this process. It is made up of you, the members. And with local control comes that local responsibility to making sure that you are managing the assets properly and keeping the place safe and doing the right thing for your members. And again, the reason why we're here is the buildings are in major need of repair. There was a notice of noncompliance in order to correct something from the city regarding the rental maintenance code, a number of issues that needed to be corrected. And we're also here to develop that vision and develop steps to get to that vision to move forward. Again, this is that four-step process that we're getting through, collaborating and evaluating and activating that decision. With the captivation, we've been gathering facts as much as possible in the past and continue to gather those facts. Getting people here, thank you again for coming out. This is another really big turnout. This is now being live casted on the website to make sure that anyone who can attend and people who are out of state can also follow along with the process. Again, the video we posted afterwards online for people to watch who can't make the time as well. And after this meeting, we will develop a newsletter to send out to reach even more homeowners. The collaboration process is synthesizing all these voices and all these concerns from the past and getting that all aired out into something that is constructive and usable into the future. To start developing options, and those options can only be judged on what you guys want the community to be. So with figuring out what you guys want, we can then judge those goals, judge those options based on how well they meet the goals. To be able to make that decision and move forward and get past the situation. Again, this is the process again. We're moving out of that collaboration into the evaluation side right now to help fine-tune those options so then we can start picking it and moving forward. This process has a lot to balance we went over last week, and we'll go over them again a little bit today. Is all the existing conditions, the requirements from the City of Westminster and also the insurance companies. What work has already been done? We want to make sure everyone understands what work has been done to this date. Talk about the budget implications on how much these things are expected to cost, what is the current HOA budget, what does that pay for, and that kind of thing. Again, more community input, go over the input we received from last week, as well as then gather some more input. Continue to define those options even more so we know how to move forward to make that decision and implement that plan forward. So these pictures, we're not going to go through them all, but briefly to see what's there. I'm sure you guys were either here last week or have been to the property. A lot of it is the walkways that are sagging from a lot of water damage, leading to a number of repairs that are needed. The City of Westminster and the Rental Property Maintenance Code has sent a letter saying that each building does contain some violations of the code, as well as all the common areas. And a lot of that has to be addressed in order to be allowed to rent units in the area. The insurance company has also sent a notice of some things they noticed that they want to get fixed, especially that brick veneer that they see starting to fall off. That makes them worried from a liability standpoint. So we want to make sure they know that we are actively moving towards a goal to fix that issue to keep people safe who are around the community. So what has been done so far? Well, Martin, a professional engineering company, has been hired to do a real investigation, dig deep in and figure out what all the issues are to see what's going on. They have noticed every single building some serious life safety issues that they recommend being addressed as soon as possible. A lot of it's from the water damage from those walkways that is deteriorating the concrete, as well as leading to some possible structural failure in those sagging walkway and wood supports. In some areas, the vinyl siding is separating the windows, and some water can be getting in. And of course, you guys all know about the brick veneer that the attachments are failing and causing a life safety issue. What has been done so far? Well, Cap and the board has been proactively engaging with the city, engaging with Martin & Martin to figure out more of these issues. As much of the small stuff they could get done right away, they have been doing to start pinning up, as well as some of the big stuff as well. A lot of major temporary fixes and some of the concrete work, all told, an estimate of about $100,000 has been put into addressing some of these issues. Unfortunately, much of that money has been spent on temporary fixes, leading to still needing to really fix it in the future and potentially causing some more issues. That's why we want to make sure as we move forward, we're doing this in a holistic manner. So what does all this mean? A lot of those fixes, like I said, have been Band-Aid fixes, because there's been lack of adequate funding, lack of a complete understanding of all issues over the past. Some of the life safety issues require immediate but only temporary fixes. And so it leads to that Band-Aid fix concept. And these issues have built up over time and over time and over time. And it's been very difficult to keep a handle on it and figure out how that fixes. So that's why we're here today. So who's to blame? Everyone wants to know who's to blame. Well, it's really hard to point a finger at a single entity or a single person, but there are some original design flaws in how it was designed. Many of which were in code back when it was built. Some weren't, and some things have been, some monies have been recovered because of that. In the past, there was no engineering analysis, so any of the fixes that were done may not have taken into account all of the situations, all of the needs before, and maybe fixed one thing and caused another issue down the line. And there's been a lot of fighting in the community with trying to decide what to do next. And so bringing the community back together again, and so we can all move forward and more of that as close to united force as possible. I think that tornado. Are we safe in here?
That's my phone.
Are we keeping going, or? Okay. Just want to make sure we all feel safe. And so the HOA budget, where does all the current money go? Obviously, there's a lot of homeowners paying a lot of money every single month. Where does all that money go? I'm sure everyone wants to know, and we heard that clear before. Well, the biggest one is water and sewer. Water and sewer is about 21% of the budget. It's over $200,000, which is a lot of money, but actually it's only about a little over $500 per unit per year, which is about $43 per month per unit. National average for water and sewer is about $40. So it's $3 over the national average, which is showing how fast that money adds up to pay for all of your water, irrigation, and everything for $43 a month. There are some cost savings we could find in there, switching to the toilets that are lower water usage. Does take an upfront cost, but we can see some substantial savings in the long run. I don't know if we want to do that now. We have other things to spend money on, but that could defer expenses in the future, which could be great, and help get at that big, huge chunk of where the budget's going. Another 5% rounds out the rest of the utilities for trash and electric. Grounds maintenance is the next big item. Insurance is the next big item, another 15%. Building maintenance, another 14%, which is probably historically low considering all the deferred maintenance that's been going on. The other one is reserves at 12% to help prevent this in the future, and which is also required. I think 10% is required by law to maintain that. Right now, the delinquency rate is 11%. So we may say we expect to get this much money in, but 11% is not coming in, and that historically was in the 20% range. And cap management, since they've come on, has gotten that down to 11%, to try to increase the amount of money that's actually coming in to usable to do with.
Last year was 10.5%. What happened?
We rounded up.
Well, I think actually, I was just told it was the most recent one, which actually happened from, they looked at it again where things are at. It was 11.25%, is that what? Yes, 11.25% is the most accurate, up-to-date information that we have today. Of course, that's an ever-changing number. As we all know, there are people who are paying and getting behind. And then 3% is the management fee. But the good news of all of this is so far in 2014, that annual budget, we're now $96,000 under budget. The board and cap management has been extremely diligent, doing everything they can to find savings where they can, knowing that these imminent repairs are happening. Where these savings come from, they hired a new cleaning crew for more savings. They got a new trash pump for the water pump to help deal with all the trash and debris in the area, minimizing costs for repairs. Hiring Martin as the engineer of record to help limit some of the engineering costs when that is needed. A new lighting vendor as well to save money. We also heard last week to not forget the small things. So cap management has outlined a few things that could be done in budget still. You guys want to see happen that we could do right away. Some sprinkler system upgrades, some alternate rock rejuvenation, adding more lighting to make the place feel more safe, refurbish some trash cans, remove all that old and unnecessary signage to help at least a small step toward improving the look and feel of the neighborhood and the community. Trimming the trees and bushes, all these things that CAP is working on as best they can to make sure that you guys know they're not forgetting about the small things. They also identified some affordable but effective solutions they could think about doing as well to make sure that those small things aren't missed. While the community is in the shape it is, hiring a security guard to come by every once in a while, $45 an hour, doing that for 6 months to help try to deal with some of the gang issues that was brought up last week.
Where was you guys the other night?
We have not done this. These are ideas that could be done.
Yeah.
45. Well, maybe we can find. We have not bid this out yet. This is just a rough guess. Of course, it would be.
Listen to him for a minute.
Thank you. Cleaning out the stairwells, painting them to make it look nicer could be a great, quick item to make the place look a lot nicer. Opening up the playground by installing a new gate and getting more lights could be something that could be excellent move forward to help do something right away. Want to remind, what if we don't get off these big items? What is the cost of inaction? Well, the rental maintenance code means that you can't rent out the units, and if you do, then if they go to this point, which the city said they're not going there yet, they like to see us moving along. But if they were to say, we're not moving fast enough. There are potential fines and jail time, which they don't typically use, but it is out there and with their authority. And of course, the safety of the residents and the visitors, and maintaining that insurance policy and keeping people safe, walking on those walkways, walking by the brick veneer. That's a liability issue, and also just keeping it safe for everyone. And every single building needs work. All of them do. Some need more, and some need less, but there's issues in all the buildings. And if we keep deferring it, those issues can grow and grow over time. And of course, the overall look of the community and all of this issue, even just having this conversation, is not good for the property values. And so the faster we can move through this, the more we can prevent any further decrease in property values and capitalize on the market right now. So going over some of the cost estimates again, about $3.1 million is for all those walkway repairs and the concrete. This 6 buildings they want us to focus on, they recommend almost a complete replacement of the 3rd level walkway. And then additional 6 beyond that in major structural repair for the concrete and the walkways. And the rest requires some concrete replacement and some structural repairs. That pricing includes all the walkways for all the buildings, guardrail repairs, paint, guardrail, trim board repair, and replacing the treads, and also getting bigger gutters to help prevent some of this water damage in the future. Why fix it if it's going to have an issue down the road? Additional major repairs, the brick anchoring, they were able to lower that cost down by not replacing it, and actually there's found a way to anchor them in to save a lot of money. But it's still a big chunk of change to fix all of those bricks, the brick veneer, and keep it from falling down. The balconies need to be looked at as well, so it's a very rough estimate of where that might be, but it's a fear that they're not safe as well, and so we wanted to have this into the budget. Engineering fees to make sure whatever's billed is done correctly. Repairing a tennis court is an amenity item, but doing it all right, the bigger number than it might have to be, but if we do it all right, new gate, new fence, and do it all, it's just to repair it though, and not replace it at that amount. And then there's all the other smaller improvements that the City of Westminster is asking for that rental maintenance code, which would not be covered by some of those big items, but still in order to be in compliance with the rental maintenance code, there's some more money there. And then a 10% contingency as well. I always said this is somewhere between 5.5, 6.5 million. We gave the number around 6. It's all still pretty rough, but these are all going to lay out what we're talking about. Tennis alternative. So we said we could repair it for about 31, a whole new court at 67, or do a pickleball court, or do a gazebo court. You know, even if we don't fix it, what do you do with it? You tear it down, you turn it into a park, or do you fix it or replace it? All decisions that we need to make together as a community. A lot of questions came up from the last meeting, and we want to offer make sure there's some clarity. There has been some past lawsuits that have brought money in to deal with some of the construction defects of the area. There was one lawsuit for the ASX 85 and the ASX 90 buildings, which this money is in the bank account of $135,000 roughly to pay for that. The work is going to begin in July to start work on some of those issues. There was also a lawsuit for the replacement siding, not the original siding, but around 2003, 2004, the siding was replaced because of a different class action lawsuit, and plus some other money that was brought in. And currently, in that account, there is $209,000. Some of that money was used to make some of the repairs. So this is all separate from the other major items we talked about. This is other issues that have to be dealt with as well, and the management company and board is working on that. We want to make sure that we try to make that as clear as possible. People brought up the sewer line issues, and the management company has said the biggest issue is people putting off flushables and grease down the drains. The mains are now currently being jetted, and CAP will continue to monitor this and help prevent any future incidences. But please, everyone, respect the sewer system, especially for those owners on the first floor as they deal with it the worst. In the insurance policy, people want to know about what are the options with the insurance policy. Well, currently, CAP management is sifting through every insurance policy for the past 10 years to see if a very specific right is ever added to that insurance policy that could help pay for what is an imminent collapse. So if you could say, insurance company, this could be falling down, then we can make a claim on that. I don't know what the probability is of finding out. I haven't found it yet. It's not in the current policy, but they're going to keep looking through every policy over the past 10 years to see if that rider did exist. And then people mentioned people's own personal condo insurance, HO6 policy. Many of those include a loss assessment coverage. Pretty average insurance policies contain $1,000 worth of loss assessment, or it can be increased to $25,000 or $50,000 or more, depending on the carrier. What that usually covers, in every case that I've come across while doing this for 6 years, is when it's the master policy makes a claim on their insurance policy, and say it's a liability issue and they pay up to $2 million for that liability issue, but the issue was $5 million. The extra $3 million would then be the assessment needed for the homeowners, plus the deductible, and then the homeowner would pay their deductible on their insurance policy. Someone has mentioned that that's not always the case. Sometimes it is for any special assessment. So please check with your insurance company, find out what your loss assessment is, and figure out what exactly does it cover. Is it for a claim on the master insurance, or is it for any special assessment? All very good knowledge. And then whatever you find out, please let us know. People wanted to make sure an audit of the books is being done. It is in progress, going back to 2011, to figure out where all the money has gone over the years, figure exactly what has happened. There's been 4 management companies in the past 4 years. CAP has just started. So dealing with the different pieces of books is not the cleanest way of doing it, but they should be able to find everything and make sure everything is matching up. So far, everything is matching up where it needs to be, but at least you can see where the money's been spent over the past. The audit report? Yes, once it is complete and signed off, it'll be posted on the website. So now what? Like we said last time, there are 400 units, which means 400 ideas. How do you distill all of that ideas into some sort of possible plan of action, how to move forward? Again, it's the process we're in. Moving from captivation to figure out how to move forward with that process. We need to make sure that any plan of action that we choose and that is chosen by the community is measured against the effectiveness to achieve what the community actually wants. So what you guys actually want, you need to make sure that any plan of action that is moved forward is moving towards that process. So in order to do that, we need to start defining what do you guys want. So we can measure to find the least cost, the things that have the least cost and the most effectiveness, and start hitting those as soon as possible and moving forward. So last, we did a SWOT analysis. We asked everyone to come up and do their strengths. We offer up about the community some strengths and some weaknesses of the community, as well as some opportunities and threats outside the community's control. And after going through this, what came about was a number of issues had to deal with communication. People want honest communication. They want people to know the facts and start communicating in a much cleaner and better fashion. They wanted to do something. They wanted to say, stop all the fighting, let's move forward and just get something done. People also mentioned stuff about being smart with money. Make sure there's no abuse of the money. Make sure whatever is spent is done accurately and done correctly, done with qualified vendors, and is not wasting any money. We also had a lot of issues of safety issues, both from crime in the area as well as the building safety, and making sure that buildings aren't going to fall on people and deal with those safety issues. We also said invest on what we have, invest on the people, on this turnout here, invest on the good neighbors everyone has, and be a community. But also invest in the location. Prospector's Point is an excellent spot in its location as the Denver metro area keeps expanding. It's close to very big highways, there's new trains coming, very valuable land. Make sure that we're investing in the property and making sure that it's worth what it should be. So again, to define that again, all that blue was to be a straight shooter, to communicate effective in a transparent manner, which everyone's trying to do is through this process. Make sure qualified experts are brought in who know the facts. And make sure there are many ways to involve the homeowners. Through committees and through things like this. They want to make sure that the HOA documents are followed and make sure that where any updates are needed, we can make sure we're hitting that while we have everyone's attention, and we can make sure those documents are up to date and are being followed. Green means go. Make sure something is done. A goal is to have the ability to execute this action plan and move forward, and focus on what is needed and not waste time, and avoid the constant fighting to make a solid decision that everyone can get behind and move forward. Of course, be smart with the money. Be accountable what's going on. Hold the vendors accountable. Make sure the homeowners are accountable in paying their dues, and make sure all that money is going where it should go. And again, use of that qualified vendors, and making sure that what money we do have at least is spent wisely. And the safety issues. Goals should be able to lower crime rates and feel safe, that perception of safety. So good lighting and good sidewalks, so it feels like a nice place to be, someplace you want to walk around and take someone. Also, getting the building safe. So if they're looking like they're going to fall down, helping that safety and security issue to make sure it's safe. We also came up with the goal of investments and capitalizing on those new investments and thinking long term. How can we build the community and the people here in the neighborhood, whether that's through amenities or whether that's through capitalizing on external opportunities. And taking pride in your HOA. This is your guys' community. This is your home or your investments. Taking pride in that. And so any option forward should really help further those goals. So we're going to spend some time in a little bit talking about what you guys think about all of those, but I also want to go over some of the options that we found some more detail based on the feedback from last meeting. So to get into that phase plan to move forward, it's going to take a series of things. Maybe, we have different toolboxes to pick from, and how do we all fit it all together? Potential for some budget cuts. Like we said, cap management and the board is proactively trying to limit that as much as possible. Not to say there's other areas for cost savings, but to gain as much as possible, it's going to be hard to look through. Special assessment, I was a little loud and clear that doing this all by special assessment is not possible. It's way too much money, and it's not going to be very effective. Other ideas within that, people wanted to talk about, I'm not going into more detail than I did for the last meeting, that's why we're in this part of the presentation, but idea of could a building succeed? It could be possible. We didn't hear a lot of support for it, so I didn't look into it more, but it does take legal fees and dealing with the common areas and how that all is going to function. Dissolving the HOA, again, there's the common areas, common utilities, to figure out how all that would function if that's possible. Saying we didn't forget about it, we just didn't spend too much more time in it, but I want to make sure that that potentially could be a possibility, but it's very, very difficult to make happen. And finding one buyer to bring it all together. So some of the options, we did go into more detail to bring back some more information. Originally, when we first started with this process, we were told by every bank in Colorado that it wasn't possible because of a high delinquency rate. We've been slowly bringing that down to close to 10%. Once you cross that 10% threshold, Association Capital Bank has agreed to look into this. So they are in the process of underwriting it, so we can see what those terms could potentially be. We're thinking it might be somewhere around 15 years, about 5%, which is about $100 per unit per month until it's paid off for the 15 years. Those numbers could change dramatically if we phase out the plan, match it with something else to figure out a way to do with that, or when we see when the actual offer from the bank comes as well. We'll know that possibility in about 1 month. Grants. Well, we've called the city of Westminster, we've called Adams County, we've called Colorado. None of them have any really good ideas. Someone mentioned the last meeting, the Community Development Block Grant. It's administered by the city, and they go through that process. It's not typically meant for anything like this. They're looking for stuff that is for the rest of the community that other people could use. It's not completely out of the realm, but if we do, it will take some time and research to apply for it, and potentially may not be a very big gain for that time and effort put into it. But we wanted to show you that we looked into it, and here's what we found so far. forming a Title 32 special district. So things like metropolitan districts that are typically met in the beginning of development. Oftentimes developers will form these districts to help pay for some of the infrastructure improvements. Now, it'd be kind of a little bit of a weird way of doing it since it's already been built, but potentially we could form a special district, which is a quasi-governmental entity under Title 32 of state statute. They would take 50% of approval of everyone here at a regular scheduled election, so November or May. There's still enough time to get it on in November. If that happens, you could form a special district, which then would add an additional property tax to then you could go to the bond market and say, hey, investors out there who want to buy bonds, we're getting this property tax, will you know, can we get an influx of cash? That cash could then be used to buy the common areas for the HOA, because the improvements that are needed for the HOA are on your buildings, not on the public elements. So the direct money couldn't be used for that, but they could buy the common elements from the HOA, have that money there, HOA would then have that money to help with the improvements. So the catch on that is it would take about $50,000 estimate of legal bank fees to even figure out all the terms that this is possible and get it in time to get it on the election, which then would have to go to vote and see if that happened. And then if it did happen, the common areas would have to open to the public. So tennis courts couldn't have a lock on them, things like that. People could come use them. Would people really use them that often? Probably not. But you have to show this is now a public amenity open to the public. Another option, of course, is the special assessment. Now, obviously, a $15,000 assessment would not be successful, would not bring in the adequate funding because not everyone would pay it. But maybe special assessment could be one of those tools in that toolbox we pick. You know, at what level, how could this all fit together to make sure that we can get the adequate funding? The benefit of a special assessment is it's focused and it's flexible, so it can be for what it's needed for and not for what it's not. Once it's paid off, then it goes away. If there's any leftover funds that's still in an account that can be shown can return back to the members, or it can be put into the general fund, that kind of concept. Faster timeline, that way it's not sitting on the books forever like a loan would be for the 15 years. So it's one of the toolboxes, one of the tools in the toolbox that we might want to consider. Delaying the project as much as possible. Against Gene's better judgment, I had to come up with this list to talk about what potentially could be deferred. As much has been deferred for many, many years, she didn't want to talk about it too much. But these are that was misspelled, I'm sorry, the imminent needs for, I'm not sure it's kind of small for us all to see, but you can see these are the 6 buildings that need repair right away for fear of collapse and other major issues, which is about $2.5 million. Each one then has a different temporary fix option, which could then maybe delay some of that cost. Again, we heard from the engineer last week that as you do these temporary fixes, it potentially causes more issues in the long run and delays that cost. I think this moves in a little bit more. And then some items that potentially could be delayed for a little longer, the other 6 buildings, and then we could not do them right away, phase them out for the next 1 to 5 years to help expand that window to help bring in those funds. And some of the miscellaneous improvements, a lot of them are from the City of Westminster list, some smaller items, but maybe aren't as life safety, but can help to add to that the visual feel and the comfort level in the community. But also a big expense and also important for the rental maintenance code. And of course, there's just the strict amenity options, which can be done to help make sure we're enhancing that community, making sure that there is usable recreation facilities that everyone thought was there when they bought into it, to help the property values and deal with that at very big numbers, but small compared to some of those major repairs. But delaying some of these options could really help with that. So deferring doing temporary fix obviously delays that financial burden, but it could potentially increase the overall cost. So as it's delayed, the costs actually go up a little bit. So it's all things to consider, and as you develop that toolbox. And it delays that property value enhancement. So the more this is put off, the slower we are at getting a handle at the property values and making sure that they're increasing as the market's increasing right now. So, I'd like to have everyone kind of stand up and exercise in just a moment. We have some boards up here, and we have some blue dots. What I'd like everyone to do, in a moment when I say we're going to get up, all come towards the front, and we're going to hand you a strip of 5 blue dots and 5 green dots. And along the side there are each of these goals and each of these options. We'd like to get a quick straw poll on what of those options, which of those goals are most important to you. Of all these 5 goals, what's most important? You can place all your 5 dots on your one most important goal to really skew your vote, or you can say, I really like all of them, and place 1 dot on each of those goals to make sure you're showing importance for every single one, or a combination of that. Again, with the options, there's the 5 options on the board. What is your favorite option? What do you want us to spend the most time on, to deal with, to put the most effort and figure out, this is where we want to lean towards. And so what we'll do with this, after this, we'll come up, we'll take pictures of them, show them on the board, so you guys can see what people are thinking. The people on the webcast, feel free to add the chat line in so we can add your dots as well. And Frank and Paul are able to assist you with that. And we'll take that, and this will be our marching orders from you. You'll tell us where to focus time, how to develop these alternatives, where to focus time and attention, develop some plans to come back and say, here are some potential alternatives that we think is what you guys are telling us to do, and then we can move forward and evaluate each of those options and to move forward. So, does anyone have any questions about that? You have a question? Well, we'll all be around to talk and ask questions about it. Do you have a quick one right now? Or? Yeah. That would be to the HOA, not a personal loan. Exactly. Mm-hmm. To pay for that for the period of the loan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. If we can't get below 10%, then it may not be possible. But the amount of gains the COP has made over the time, I'm assuming they'll be able to continue those gains and get below 10% in the very near future. Does that all make sense? Does the exercise itself make sense? We don't know when. We want to make sure that the community is a part of that decision-making process. So the board and CAP manager is not coming and saying, here's how we're going to fix this issue. We're just saying, how would you guys like us to help fix this issue? And to do that in a constructive manner, we want to see what's most important to you. In terms of these goals, what's most important, in terms of these options, what seem most likely to you, and then we can develop those alternatives. Yes? This is not a vote of any sort. This is just a talk. Okay. There's no decisions being made. So I think what we can focus on right now is those goals. So if you look, yeah, okay, so there's 5 goals to vote on. Goal number 1, you want to think about what's most important to you. Is communication and being honest and being a straight shooter? That's important to most people, but is it most important to you? If it is, place all 5 of your dots on this one. Goal number 2 is get something done. I want something done quickly, and I want to know when it is. I want it to happen right away. This is goal number 2, and it's all written again on the boards as well. 3 is be smart with the money. Don't spend it unwisely. Do it right. Make sure it's done correctly the first time. Number 4 is safety, keeping things safe for everyone. Number 5, go ahead, please go ahead and start, is investing in our community and what we have and making sure we're capitalizing on everything we can. So that's that first section. So there are 5 goals. And additionally, there's a comment section. We have some markers as well if you want to add in other additional comments to add in dealing with the goals. And there are 3 more boards on the potential options. We'll do this for about 15 minutes or so. You mean? They are happy with the progress we're making. And so they don't really want to give a definitive timeline, but they want to see that we're continuing to move forward. And so as we're doing this, this is good. And so it's that element of, as we continue to make these improvements, then they're going to be happy with how things are going. They're not threatening that at all. Yes. Yes. So one of the options is applying for a loan. This is a loan for the HOA, which then would kind of spread that cost over time, of course, with the additional interest. And then, of course, there would be a needed way to raise that additional money to help pay for that loan. There's a question on the loan itself, or I'll go questions again once we're done with all of this. And then the grant is, do you want us to spend time looking into potential grants that are out there? So far, we've come up fairly dry with it, but we're willing to spend more time if that's what people want us to do, and make sure that is an important part of that process. Title 32 Special District, which is creating another entity, a quasi-governmental entity, to help bring in some more funds through the bond market, so it's not all limited on everything else. Special assessment. How important is this in that toolbox? Should it absolutely no way, no how? Should we have any kind of special assessment and find funds from everywhere else? It's potentially that we're probably going to have to use this toolbox to some level, but by how much? And then, of course, delaying that project, finding ways of, let's just put this off as long as we possibly can. Yes, it won't look pretty. Yes, it may add to the cost, but it's going to defer it as long as possible. More temporary fixes, more Band-Aid fixes, as we slowly piece this together. Any other questions? Yes. So that's all in the bank. The lawsuit money is in the bank, and we will do a full open forum question and answer after we finish this exercise. So on all those general questions, we will spend some time to go over that. We just wanted to be able to show kind of, get people's blood moving again, kind of see what people are thinking moving forward with that. Excuse me, I have to change the hardware. Test. What's wrong? Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Oh yeah, so we haven't looked at that entirely, but yeah, so any special assessment would have a timeline on it. So what he's asking is, with the special assessment, is that like all do it once? The special assessment would be written as, you can pay this over the course of the year, or over the course of 3 years, depending on how best that toolbox fits. Now when we start developing these alternatives, there won't just be one option to consider and think about it. There'll be a different mix of all of these, and at least 2, probably 3 different mixes. So you can see this mix may have a smaller special assessment, over 3 years. This mix might be a shorter period of time. But we're talking about, should we use that tool, special assessment, in any way, shape, or form to try to make this work?
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
You're okay.
You're not handicap accessible here.
They will see what the HOA dues are. Yeah. Is similar to a any special assessment would be, or any sort of any of the dues. It won't. You'll still see it. They'll see that they owe both, but they'll see that part is, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming, but it would probably be less because we do the whole thing. Other questions? Yeah, so Title 32. So we have another question on what a Title 32 special district is. So a Title 32 special district, again, it's a quasi-governmental entity that has the ability to tax. And so the voters here at Prospector's Point will have to go part of a regular county election to create this quasi-governmental entity. And then once it's formed, would then show that it could levy a property tax, an additional property tax, which is hidden in the property taxes, that brings in money every year. That income, that district could then show, could attract investors. Someone could get a loan to kind of like a loan, but on the municipal bond market, to be able to bring in money for that, to then buy the common areas, to make that the common areas would then have to be public, because then it would be a public amenity. It would mean an additional property tax instead of an assessment or resource, which is seen separately than the HOA. They've been happy with the improvements. The city's been happy with the improvements we've been making over the past year. They're very happy that we're doing these community meetings, and they're happy to see it moving forward. If we were to stop making forward progress, they would be upset. They want to see continued forward progress. None of it's good. I mean, the property values are hurt now because visually appealing. The HOA, you can see the defects. Any of these options to raise money, of course, has an effect on property value because people see that when they buy it. Property tax is a little bit more hidden than an HOA do, but it's all there. He's asking how much property taxes would go up. It would, be minimal, anywhere from a few. Property taxes are rated on mill levy, and so typically, I'm not sure what your guys' is, but it might be right around 35 mils. It might range it up to 40 mils or so additional 5 mils. So that is the rate on the taxable rate. So whatever the your assessed rate is, then it would be 0.05% or something in addition on that rate. So it's really hard to figure out what that might be, but before making a vote on anything like that, you would see. How much is, no, it'd be probably less. It'd be less. Because you're going to get better terms on the bond market than you would do through a bank loan. Bank loan is going to be around that 5%. The bond market is going to be much lower. This is not a super safe investment, but it's going to be 2 or 3%. Yeah, a lot of the issues they've been gathering and figuring out what is going on. The HOA has known about this for a very, very long time. I don't work for the management company. The management company's been there for 1 year, and they've been wrapping their head around it. I work for a community engagement firm that's been brought on in the past month. So one of the options is applying for a loan. This is a loan for the HOA, which then would kind of spread that cost over time, of course, with additional interest. And then, of course, there would be a needed way to raise that additional money to help pay for that loan. question on the loan itself, or?
This is green.
I'll ask more questions again once we're done with all this. And then the grant is, you want us to spend time looking into potential grants that are out there. So far, we've come up fairly dry with it. We're willing to spend more time if that's what people want us to do. And make sure that is an important part of that process. So, I mean, we're delaying that by finding ways of, let's just put this off as long as we possibly can. Yes, and we'll period. Yes, and out of the cost, but it's going to defer as long as possible. More temporary fixes, more band-aid fixes, as we slowly piece this together. Any other questions?
Accountability on their account. Blue on this side?
So, that's all the things. The lawsuit money is in the bank. We will do a full open forum question and answer
Blue on this
after we
side?
finish this exercise. So on all those general questions, we will spend some time to go over that. We just want to be able to show, get people's blood moving and see what people are interested in for. Okay, thank you. If you guys could find your way back to your seats and we can continue on and talk about what some of these boards look like and what it might mean. A lot of questions in the meantime that over here in the corner, I'll make sure I'll go over what was talked about and make sure that we're all continuing to be on the same page. In just a moment here. All right, thank you very much. I know it's kind of an awkward process in such a big group, but it's one of a good way to kind of get a quick gauge of where people are thinking, before we move on to the community forum. And so on these first two, this first one about, communication obviously is a very strong one, no surprise. I hope that the board and the management company are showing that they are very into the concept of being clear and transparent and open to it, making sure all that is happening. We will make sure that all the alternative plans can go towards better communication. Big ones on green means go, get something done, move some bigger action, get down the road quickly, no more waiting anymore. But some of the bigger ones looks like was being smart with money. I think that's what got everyone into this mess was by not being so smart with the money. And so every proposed plan in the future better address that issue, and so that is heard loud and clear. Interesting enough, safety was kind of a little lower relative to the other ones. I think making sure that it's taking care of the money and moving forward and being clear communication definitely score a little bit higher from this quick straw poll. And then investment, similar to the safety, maybe a little bit less. It's definitely on people's radar, but not as important as the other big ones. So as we come up with those plans, what we'll do is we'll do that cost-effective analysis. So we'll figure out a different alternatives, different way of mixing and matching all of those tools, different levels of use of those tools. We will see how does that fit and match those goals, and most importantly, how does it make sure that it's smart with the money? Where are the accountability measures? That's what I'm seeing you guys want to see loud and clear. Any proposed alternative. You're also seeing, make sure it's communicated effectively and it gets moving forward. And additionally then, in the end, is the safety and the investment. Some of the comments that we heard here, I haven't gotten through these at all. I'm having a hard time reading some of those there. But they want a board that can be trusted and accountable. I think that is very important. And I hope that going through this process is showing the board wants to be trusted and accountable as well and be as transparent as possible. I know there's a long history in this HOA that may or may not have happened, but moving into the future, the goal is to make sure it's transparent. Or to get rid of the board. So it goes one or the other, be trusted and accountable or leave. And make sure that the board members live in the property. What does COW get? City of Westminster, their goal is to make sure the community is safe. The community is safe and making sure that people have a safe place to be. They're looking out for the neighbors of Prospector's Point, that everyone nearby sees Prospector's Point as an asset to the community and make sure that it's bringing the whole city up. Have a Habitat Community Project for minor repairs is a very good idea. I think it's a fun way to get volunteers. With an organization like that, that's a possibility. We can definitely see how that might look and how that could be fit in with the toolbox. And now going over for the options, I want to make it very clear that the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to see what is most important of these options. So as we develop a list of alternatives, it's going to combine these. So it won't just be an alternative, it's all special assessment. It won't be for one alternative that's just a loan. It's combining all those together, playing with those numbers as best as possible. And I got the question, so why haven't you guys done that yet? Why haven't you guys played with the numbers and shown it? How is this all going to work? Here, lay it out. Well, I've been doing this for a number of years now, and I've worked with HOAs who have done that, and they come out and say, here's our plan. Here's what we're going to do. Could you imagine me saying that last week? There would be uproar. People would just scream and say, why would we trust you? You've screwed up the whole time before. What's going to happen now? That's why we're doing this process. That's why we're coming together and showing, here's how we're going to make this decision. We're going to make this decision with as much community input as possible, with as much transparency as possible. So whatever decision has come to, you can see how that moved along, and you can see how it's going to be successful. And so we want to see, what do you guys want? What do you think is a possible option to move in the future? So after this meeting, we'll have our marching orders to define some possible combinations of these tools. We're going to lay them out for you. We're going to write a newsletter to say, here is one possible option that we can implement and move forward that will accomplish your goals. Here is another option with a different combination of these tools to meet your goals. And then we can judge those into a cost effectiveness analysis to see what is going to match up even better, and to be able to find that forward. So as we go through these, the biggest one that everyone here in this room said was apply for the loan. They like the idea of deferring that cost. We can do it over time. I got a question a number of times to make sure that that loan doesn't have a prepayment penalty, meaning that if we find savings and down the line, if we find other ways of getting money in, we can start paying off that principal and lower that duration of that loan, which of course is what the HOA will want to do. And moving forward with that, finding ways of tying this tool in with other tools to lower that principal amount and lower that monthly payment as well. Seeking grants, definitely had a number of them as well. Again, we're not finding huge success in that, but I'm showing that we make sure that we don't leave any rock unturned. We're going to keep looking that way, keep calling more people and find out that maybe it's things that aren't through Adams County and City of Westminster and the state, which we've contacted, but maybe there are other grants out there that we could think about. Maybe other nonprofits working for HOAs. We will continue to look and make sure that if it's out there, we found it and we can look into it. Forming a special district, quickly seeing that people may not be as interested in doing a special assessment. The special district, it is additional property tax. It is a lot of upfront costs, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of time consuming. So I'm saying maybe not focus our time on that right away, because we only have limited time. Let's focus on some other options. I will continue to keep a dialogue open with the attorneys involved in that, as well as the bank, just to make sure that if we do go down that route, we can hit it quickly, but we won't focus on that, I can see. Delaying the project, I'm seeing even lower votes for that, for delaying project. What that's showing is, let's get something done. Let's make sure that we can have some measurable results right away. So we will focus on alternatives to make sure that it does actually accomplish something quickly and doesn't have those added costs. That's very interesting to see, and maybe not what I expected. In some of the comments, take more bids for jobs. Currently, CAP always takes 3 bids. That third bid can take a little bit of time to get in, but that is something they always do to make sure that the board has all the information, make sure they're not only picking the most affordable price vendor, but also picking a vendor who is qualified and able to do it. Do an audit within the 60 days. I believe we're on schedule for that, and we'll have that posted. Use special assessment, $500 to $1,000 per unit to lower the loan. So again, wants to mix those goals, which I think the alternatives would lay out and do that. So back to here again. Oh, it's not showing good. Oh, man. Excuse me. So again, this is the process that we're in. We're really moving into that defining options and beginning to be able to evaluate them with all of that community input. That's not to say community input stops. Frank, would you mind coming up here a little bit? Frank is going to be the main guy on the phones to get a hold of and talk to, as well as myself. You can talk with CAP management and make sure that you are getting any information that you need, any other questions. As we move forward to defining these processes, we're going to get a newsletter out. Frank and I will work on it together to synthesize these two meetings for people who are here and want to recap, who weren't here, want to see what that happened, and want to be transparent as possible. You can see again where we're going and why we're going that way, and just start developing those alternatives to figure out what's going to make the most sense and what's going to be most effective. So please don't hesitate to call and email. We get a number of them. It's a large community, so we batch them in one spot, so I apologize if we don't respond right away, but we will as soon as we can, and we will tally in those comments and take that into consideration as we move forward with the alternatives. We're also open to sit down and talk to you throughout the next couple of weeks, one-on-one, if you want to figure out more information as well. Again, please contact us as well. If you want to find more ways to help, we're here to ask for more help, so please let us know.